Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where once again we find ourselves discussing the importance of charting one's own course. That's actually a pretty good rule for life in general, but it's particularly important in an industry like Hollywood, which isn't particularly structured. Although, as types of work evolve in society, this was actually a big point of contention in the last presidential election here in the United States. More and more industries aren't particularly structured. So this advice is very, very good. But anyway, we even talked about this or touched on it on Movie Math last week when I pointed out that Chadwick Boseman and Luke Evans were not charting their own courses and found themselves, quote unquote, I'm quoting myself here, adrift on the sea of opportunity in Hollywood. And Luke Evans, some luck came by as Josh Gad, as he charts his own course, has decided to pick up Luke Evans for a little bit of extra juice in the engine room. And he's also picked up Daisy Ridley because Josh Gad don't waste time on sets. He forges relationships that, oh yes, he's going to call upon very soon after. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, why does Josh Gad need to chart his own course? I mean, I could see maybe some other individuals having a problem, like Chadwick Boseman, of course, is going to be Black Panther, but Luke Evans is Gaston, and that has not ended up doing very much for him. But Josh Gad is Olaf. He will work forever. He's set with Frozen money, and that's very much indeed the case. He will be coming in forever to record new Olaf dialogue, be it for short films, theme park attractions, television specials, etc. He also has residuals. He will be getting tons of money forever. But Josh Gad, of course, is a creative individual, particularly because he comes from Broadway. Some people just go to Hollywood to make money. So Josh Gad has checked that box. But he, of course, also wants to be creatively fulfilled. And also he would like to continue to work, particularly on camera. And it's not going so well in that regard. He, of course, is in Murder on the Orient Express, where he met Daisy Ridley, but he's not the star of that movie. And while people, I'm sure, are like, oh, there's another reason to go see the movie, it's not the main reason to go. Maybe for some of you it is. But he doesn't have any other live-action films on the horizon. He's also, by the way, speaking of Chadwick Boseman, in Marshall as well. But he's not the star of any films. And even the film coming up is called Party of the Century, where he plays Truman Capote. I think also not only is it not the lead role, but it's a role that many other actors have very famously played within recent memory. So it's not. So he's almost like a discount Truman Capote, right? At the point that he's getting the character. It's like so many other people have done it. You're just you want to crack at it, Josh Gad, and he, obviously wants to work. But he's not the star. And the stars of that film, it's a romance that takes place with Truman Capote's party as a backdrop. So that really is even worse for him. But the stars are Chloe Grace Moretz and Garrett Hedlund. So that movie ain't going to make no money. So Josh Gad has said, well, I have to just obviously do this myself, damn it. And also, for those of you who don't know, we recently discussed the importance of agents and managers. But even though, particularly a manager is supposed to come up with new and exciting ideas for your career to try and keep you working, often they don't do it. So I've heard a number of people in the industry say at the end of the day, they're responsible for getting them all their own work, and their agents and managers negotiate the deals and make sure they get not only what they deserve, but sometimes a little bit more. So it's not unheard of, even for someone as established as Josh Gad, who has a whole team of people and a production company, it turns out, working for him, to still have to come up with the idea himself, damn it. So he's come up with the superhero idea. What a shocker. And it's very secretive, but it's a character-driven comedy, supposedly, with a quote-unquote original spin on the superhero genre. But I have to say, with Daisy Ridley and Luke Evans in the cast, it seems a little Megamind-y to me. But Megamind was a great movie, and DreamWorks Animation never did anything with that. So I guess if I was watching that, if I was Josh Gad, I believe he's a family man, so if he popped in but anyone should watch Megamind. It's really spectacular. Maybe you popped it in and said, I should do this. DreamWorks didn't do anything with it. I'm going to do something. So he's putting this project together himself. And again, on movie sets, there's a lot of downtime, particularly for the actors in between shots while they strike the set or when they set up new lighting. You know, every time they reset the camera, they have to move everything around to go with that. So there's hours of dead time. You're supposed to usually, you know, sometimes meet your trainer, make sure you're in good shape, go over your lines, prepare for your scene, get ready for the next project, do publicity, etc., etc. And Josh Gad went around making friends. So he's very good friends now with Daisy Ridley. Of course, he did those Star Wars social media videos where he tried to get secrets from her about the new trilogy. And of course, he was very well known for his bromance with Luke Evans on the set of Beauty and the Beast, where he played, of course, LeFou. The first official LGBT character in a live-action Disney movie, but that ended up really being a non-issue after the story first broke. It didn't hurt the box office, but wasn't really a conversation, and it didn't really end up being a conversation either. So he called on these people and he said, "Hey, we're buddies. Let's, we all could kind of use a little bit of help." I think Daisy Ridley too is struggling outside of Star Wars, so they're like, "Let's do it." So Josh Gad, although Josh Gad has hired these people, but they're not producing with him. Daisy Ridley and Luke Evans have no say in the creative, because he's the one, Josh Gad, through his production company, who hired some screenwriters. And he hired the Kendall brothers, who are new on the scene. They did a little work on Moana, so I don't know why he would hire them. Sorry, Moana was very weak, I feel, particularly in the writing, and had some good jokes, but I think a story on the water is tough to do. And it's interesting, these guys also wrote another story on the water, a screenplay called Adrift. Maybe this is what got them the work on Moana, which Shailene Woodley is going to star. And this actually sounds like a great project for Shailene Woodley, where she has to go out on a boat to save the man she loves who's lost at sea, right? I mean, Shailene Woodley's so annoying in real life, but she's such a fabulous actress, and I think that's a good part for her. But let's just see if she can not stick her foot in her mouth, at least before it comes out on the publicity tour. But, so I think that writing duo seems a little weak to me, but I also feel like, considering what we know about Josh Gad, Luke Evans, and Daisy Ridley's personalities, I have a tiny little fear that this could come off as like theater kids run amok. I mean, anyone who knows theater kids from their time in school knows exactly what I'm talking about. And, I think that, I would want to make sure they had a little bit more structure, and it seemed a little bit more like a professional endeavor. So, I don't know. I mean, I think Josh Gad and Daisy Ridley and Luke Evans might be like, well, why are we having problems? Maybe if we combine forces, we'll all have problems together, and they'll be compounded because we're all next to each other. Maybe come to think of it, it would have been a better idea to get some people who are a little bit better established and balanced him out. Although that's not working in the other projects that he's in. So good luck, Josh Gad. I think you need it. So I'm curious, what do you think not only of what he's putting together, but where Josh Gad finds himself and how he's handling it? All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now, speaking of casts who get along, well, Josh Gad made friends again with Daisy Ridley and Luke Evans on those films, where he co-starred with them. We all know, of course, that the Marvel people get along real well, right? And they're, of course, right now shooting Infinity War in Atlanta. So since they're already there, they've decided to do a benefit, a one-night reading of Our Town in Atlanta, because, again, they're already there, for Hurricane Maria relief, which, of course, they're talking about Puerto Rico. Now, we've had 3 big hurricanes, all devastating, but Puerto Rico, of course, has, infamously not been getting the support it needs, as opposed to Texas and Florida. I think that it makes this a little bit too political. I would have done hurricane relief for everybody, like they recently did with all Lady Gaga and all 5 presidents over the weekend. But, to each their own. I mean, Mark Ruffalo is a part of this, and we all know that Mark Ruffalo is very aggressive when it comes to activism. So Scarlett Johansson, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, and Mark Ruffalo are all going to get together and do this reading. That means it's not staged. There's no sets or costumes, but they, these celebrities come out on stage with the scripts. They don't even have to memorize lines. They, of course, are familiar with it, so they can look up occasionally. They have microphones, and they do a reading together. So tickets actually went on sale this morning for November 6th, so I'll put a link down below in the video description if you're interested in attending. It's expensive, though. It's about $100 for a regular seat, between $85 and $100. Then there are VIP packages where you get to sit toward the front of the theater or actually on the stage. And then also there's a meet and greet after the show with the talent, so you can meet these individuals and ask them all your Infinity War questions. So it's $1,000 if you want to sit on the stage, and it's about $500 a person if you want to sit in the first 3 rows. But you have to spend at least $500 to get into that meet and greet. I would think that, considering their Avengers Infinity War fandom, and that this so obviously plays off of that because they're all in the film, and that's what they're making right now, I would have gone for volume over price. I would have gotten the biggest venue I could and sold the tickets maybe for $50 a pop, and then asked for people to make further donations potentially. But let's see how much they raise. But it's a nice thing to do, and it just again highlights how friendly people get, particularly when making a movie together because of all the downtime. All right, now speaking of money, Netflix has raised a lot of money for themselves. They've raised an additional $1.6 billion, it was announced today, as they're looking to get a war chest of $8 billion for next year to spend on original content. Now that means not only content they produce themselves, but things that they acquire from outside sources, the festival circuit, etc. Now I'm calling it a war chest because they've not only declared war on traditional, entertainment, courses like traditional television and movies, but now they find themselves in genuine competition with not only Amazon, as was the case before, but Hulu, particularly after the historic amount of Emmy wins that they had for The Handmaid's Tale. Now, Netflix is in debt, but they can still get people to give them money because they're just doing so well. And they also raised recently, as I'm sure you saw, the price of their streaming service to $11, which of course is going to just generate a ton of extra cash in addition. So they've previously been spending around $6, but they're going to up it by an extra $2 billion. And they're going to, of course, as we've recently discussed, part of that will be 80 movies in a year. I think that's so ridiculous. But we'll talk about that in just a second. But I wanted to point out that I myself thought this was particularly interesting because over the weekend, it was I went to see two movies. I saw Medea on Thursday and Geostorm on Friday. They were both really not good, okay? And then all the other films, either it was like the distribution wasn't good, they weren't playing at nice theaters, or they were just so horrible, and they were just like non-entries, like nobody's seeing them. Like The Snowman is just dead on arrival, right? And then you have Mindhunter, which is what I found myself watching over the weekend. I'd stopped because it's such a gruesome subject matter, but boy, it's just so well made and it's so good. And so, for instance, why would you watch The Snowman when you can watch Mindhunter on Netflix, which you've already paid for? So I think that I can see Netflix, not only is it being a genuine competitor, but a godsend to the audience, to the consumer, because Hollywood is not doing its job once again. Old Hollywood, traditional Hollywood. Netflix, of course, very much feels that it's a part of Hollywood, the new Hollywood. But what I think this 80 movies thing is a mistake. I think that the secret weapon, as I said when I reviewed Stranger Things, is that Netflix is able to produce an 8 to 10 hour movie. That's incredible. That's very exciting. That is just, when I watch something like Mindhunter, it does not feel episodic to me. It feels like just a movie, and it's just broken up into episodes. It's broken up into bite-sized pieces to make it a little bit easier for consumption if you don't want to binge the thing, right? Although you do find yourselves watching it a couple episodes at a time. And of course, Stranger Things, the sequel, season 2, starts this Friday. So that's where I think Netflix's strength lies. I think it's a little sad they don't realize that, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to be in the movie business. But I think that they are. They just make 8 to 10 hour movies. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, the viewer question, we're going to circle back to that Josh Gad conversation because anyone can chart their own course, no matter what point in their life that they are or their career. So Fanstar9 says, viewer question, Dear Grace, long-time watcher and first-time question. What is your opinion of trans actors and actresses in Hollywood? I'm wanting to move out and see if I can get steady work as I've acted for several years doing small plays and TV commercials, non-union at the moment. My only worry is not as many parts or not being able to get steady work. Should I focus on that, or is trans talent more accepted in the modeling world? As I would rather try to focus on one than fall on my face and go nowhere. Love to get your opinion as it seems Hollywood is becoming more diversified. Love the show and bring back Think About the Ink. Loved that show. Hashtag Cinder Venus. Squeak, squeak. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. I do think that you're going to have a much better time with modeling. Modeling, they're a little bit edgier, okay? And also, they're just going for something that's a very interesting, arresting photograph. Whereas when you go into Hollywood, they're trying to reflect society and what's at the moment. And, and also, while there are trans roles that are coming up, they're very far and few between, obviously. Whereas, modeling, I don't know how much work is there either and how much steady work is there. I mean, I think you can find yourself in a tough situation either way, but I think you would have more opportunities there. Now, the reason some of you might think this is a very specific question, right? Why pick it for the show? Well, I think this is good advice for anybody who finds themselves not fitting a Hollywood stereotype. So basically, if you want to be an actor in Hollywood, what you have to do is you have to be like, well, what other actors am I like? You have to find what vertical, what category do you fit in? You know, like, who is getting your parts now? Who could you eventually become? That's how Hollywood thinks of people. Now, I know a lot of you might be like, but isn't Hollywood gonna appreciate my unique awesomeness? They are not, unless, of course, your unique awesomeness makes them a lot of money. So that's what we're going to talk about in this viewer question. But I would like to point out that, of course, there's Laverne Cox from Orange is the New Black, who plays Sophia as a transgender actress. And then Asia Kate Dillon represents the non-binary, aka genderless community quite effectively, I feel, on Billions as Taylor. She's doing a fabulous, well, Asia Kate Dillon, who does not want to be specified. It's not his or her or she or he, but I feel it doesn't seem appropriate. But anyway, Asia Kate Dillon is very talented. So these individuals lucked out in that roles were written that required an actor of their uniqueness, right? But they're very far and few between, as I said. So what you need to do is you need to create your own material. There is a long history of this in Hollywood for people both in front of and behind the camera. But, you know, it used to be more so behind the camera. Today, it's more in front of the camera. And, you know, now today, there's a little more traditional, or you go through film school, or you can, you know, the festival circuit, and also there are these new programs that studios are doing to try and get more diverse talent behind the camera. But in terms of these maverick moves, this is very much something that talent can do. And I would say a great recent example is Issa Rae, who started her own show because she didn't feel that black women, look at Lupita Nyong'o. This woman's an Oscar winner. She can hardly get any work. Taraji P. Henson infamously said, when she was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Benjamin Button, she said, I can't get a single job, and I am an Oscar nominee. You know, I'm hot off of being an Oscar nominee. It's not even like it's cool that, you know, I just was nominated. She couldn't get anything. So Issa Rae said, I'm going to make my own show right here on YouTube. She did that. And I think, you know, particularly because if you find yourself in a community where there might be people who would want to see growth there, they would reach out to you. So, for instance, if you're not in one of those hot groups, you know, your show is not going to get as noticed as someone who goes, well, isn't this great with Issa Rae? She's carving out a niche, you know, that isn't met. So keep that in mind. So Issa Rae did pretty good on YouTube. There are shows that do better, but, you know, again, she is doing something unique that I think some people were like, well, here's something that I can do that's different, and there is a success factor already built in. I told you Hollywood doesn't like to take risks, but since her representation was able to say, hey, look, she has these views here, you know, HBO can say, okay, I'm not taking a total, you know, stab in the dark here. You know, she has some fans already, and I can tell that to anybody else. So, of course, Insecure is doing very nicely on HBO. It's not huge, but it's certainly talked about. She's getting nominated for awards, and also, you know, she's getting mentioned for potentially writing that Ava DuVernay, Lupita Nyong'o, speaking of Lupita Nyong'o, Rihanna movie, right? Although, interestingly, I don't hear any talk about Issa Rae being on camera for that. So, you know, it's a tough business. She's a great example of someone who just recently forged her own path. So I'm not discouraging you from going to Hollywood, Cinder Venus, but I think it's very important for you to realize that it's going to take a lot of time. You're going to have to be very aggressive. You're going to have to be creative, but not aggressive in a way that nobody wants to deal with you. But, you know, you're going to have to chart your own course, and it might not work out. It's a very difficult industry. I think, like, for instance, they were talking about actresses recently and with Harvey Weinstein, and they pointed out that only 15% of actresses registered with SAG are working actors. That means 85% of the actresses registered with SAG don't work consistently enough to consider it their job. It's a very tough business. So make sure you have a second, you know, backup job that you like and that you're content to do for a while. Maybe you could do modeling and acting at the same time. But just realize it's going to be an uphill battle, and you have to be smart about it. You know, work harder and smarter. That's the way, I think, to help yourself as best you can in any situation. All right, so good luck. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Please write down below today's top 3 stories. Cinder Venus is a viewer question. Anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions, of course, that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.